I just want to be proud of and have a body of work that sort of does the sport justice and lasts over time. And to do that, you've got to take a ton of shots that you'll never use.
When you think about like, this is a shot successful to you, like how do you measure that these days, and has that changed? Like, are you looking for a shot to go on Instagram and get a certain amount of views or likes, or would you be more interested in seeing it in print or up on a wall somewhere? Like what for you feels like a really successful shot?
I guess it comes down to, okay, you have your client deliverables, which you need to deliver a certain amount of good shots. I'd like to deliver amount of good shots and options for them, their riders, their co-sponsors, the teams, the brands to use in different ways, both through social media and other. But really, it boils down to who won the race, or what was the story of the race, and did I capture that shot? Like, it's always like we always have our own little, I wouldn't say contest, but we always, as the pressure is elevated come race day, DH finals or world champs, is like, okay, this Loic Bruni won. He's not a client of mine. I don't shoot for Specialized or Olin's or anything, but I myself, I don't actually need to have a shot of Bruni, but 100% I need to. Otherwise, like, why would I be doing this if I didn't care about the sport? I want to have that shot for me, even if they've got nothing to do with it. Obviously, it would be nice if it's used in the Misspent Summers books or your Downtime books, but at the end of the day, I want to have the shot that best captures his race-winning moment. But alongside that, I also want him to have a shot of him tying his shoelaces that morning that he won the race, or folding his jersey the night before he won the race, or pinning the number, his mechanic pinning the number on. So, and you don't know who's going to win the race. So you're literally going around and kind of collecting those shots. You're floating in and out of different people's pits and clients or not clients, and just because some wins are more momentous than others. And even looking at Almery from Val di Sole, I mean, I have a shot of him lying on his back, surrounded by other riders and Dora. Where did he have his big crash where he broke his neck? Lenzerheide. So I have these different shots of Almery, like literally at the lowest of lows, and they weren't sort of right to use then. And but now that I have him gone the whole journey, and it was weird because Val di Sole, sometimes the way that it works out, and your timing going into the pits and not in the pits, or the training schedules, and sometimes you see a rider a lot, or sometimes you don't. And somehow I kept bumping in and out of Almery a lot at Val di Sole, and then so I had a lot more sort of B-roll or behind the scenes or more intimate stuff, really. And then he gets the win and followed through a bit of pastis and the rest of the stuff, and then literally just walked into the truck, and he was sitting completely alone. He's come back from anti-doping, and he hadn't had time to process his win yet. Like, he went from finish line, all the interviews, the podium, all the craziness, the doping, and then obviously when you get back to the pits, everyone in the team that hasn't seen him has been waiting for more than an hour, and they got the big chair and some stuff sprayed on him, but then he slipped off into the truck, and I'm actually just wanting to get home and start my work, because this is like, I need to get working. And there he was in their lounge in their truck, and just kind of reliving the moment, and it only sunk in then where he's come from, and it's from like the bottom of the bottom, and not believing in himself, even this year when he was healthy and back racing, to not just being back on the podium or taking a win, but how he won by this type of margin on the conditions and the track. It's the hardest track in the hardest conditions, yet somehow he still did it, and he did it in his fashion, in the way he does do it. So the question was, what was how are you thinking of what shot works for what? we're taking a lot of shots that they can be used in all different ways. I want to still get a cover of a magazine, a cover on the Instagram carousel, but I also want to have a book. If I want to write a book in 10 years about the greatest moments in the last 30 years of our sport, I want to have that shot, and that for sure would be one of them, is similar to Jackson winning in Mont-Saint-Anne last year. But so I just want to be proud of and have a body of work that sort of does the sport justice and lasts over time. And to do that, you've got to take a ton of shots that you'll never use, because you did the same thing with Benoit or Menard or Jackson, and they didn't win. So all those things you did with Armory, you've actually also done some of it with a lot of other riders. You're not just rolling the dice and choosing one rider and hoping they win. At least me, anyway. So yeah, and sometimes working as a photographer of a team, you get more access and you spend more time around the rider, so you get some cool stuff. And
Are there particular images then in your back catalogue that are favourites that stand out? Like, I'd love to hear maybe one or two stories around a couple of pictures that really resonate with you. It's
so hard on the spot, but when Steve Pete, so I was racing when he was racing and came so near. In fact, I was at Leger racing in 2004 when he was up 2 seconds on Fabian. I'd finished my race run before him because I qualified. This is World Champs. So I qualified worse. I had a massive over the bars in that. There's like a anyway, not about my run. Steve and my parents and Uncle's parents were actually on the grass right near the finish line, and he went way too fast and just got ejected. So I'd been there when he'd missed a lot of his wins or his close seconds.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for all his battles with Nico. Canberra, fast forward, he wins. He had a pretty trick bike setup. Everyone was making light stuff. He had a full downhill bike, but just had a little road red cassette on. That was the only like custom tweak for Canberra that they did to their bike. But as it turned out, I didn't have the best race run shot because I think he qualified like, I don't know, 6 or 7, but he didn't come down last. So I was making my way to the finish bar. Didn't want to just be camped out there. And I was kind of in no man's land when he came by. So I do have 2 shots, a front shot and a back shot, and the back shot's kind of cool, but you also don't want to have your favorite shot of Steve Pete winning World Champs as a butt shot. like that's just not your race winning shot, So I kind of got 2 shots that I remember. I got there late. Either which way, there was a big scrum of people around him. I got there late and I was like, and everyone's just cameras, and this is media, friends, family. Every single person in the world wanted Steve Pete to win, and he went and won. And I couldn't get in, literally. So I just literally lay on the ground, leopard crawl through people's legs, looked up, and I just saw this like vision. There was just this crowd of people around him. We can pop this image up. I can give it to you.
Nice.
And I kind of hadn't done a shot like that before. And then I saw it was going to be a silhouette, so I just snapped a frame, and then I quickly spun the exposure dial to get it exposed because I was shooting up to the sky. And one of the frames, the way the people parted and moved, became like, it was pretty obvious that he was the center of attention. But then, more importantly, and then I got him specifically at the podium. I was like, okay, I want this to be about Steve. World Champs, no one else matters. So I put a tilt shift lens on, which keeps him in focus, and Mick and I know Mick was in second. I forget who was in third. But anyway, they were blurry, but Steve was in focus. And I was still kind of like, I didn't get that race winning shot. I need more. And it's Steve Pete, so I was going to document him until he fell asleep. And I wasn't even working for Santa Cruz then. Gary Perkin was. So then they went to some back room where normally we're not allowed to go, but because it's World Champs, they don't really know what you're allowed to do. And because it's Australia, they're not used to. So I just wandered in, and there I was, and there was the medals. And it was probably between anti-doping and some kind of press interview, but there was this quiet room and space. And Steve had literally just picked up the phone, and he was having a conversation with Adele, and he had his son's names written on each of his gloves. And I got a photo of him chatting on the phone, like in tears. I was pretty much in tears taking the photo, and then he gave me like a double nux with his kids' names and the gloves. So like that, again, it's a series of photos. So you just asked me a question, and I spoke for too long of a single image. It's the storytelling of the narrative of those, say, 5 pictures, and the action photo is the worst out of all of them. Then there's the Sam Hill crashing at Val de Sol in 2008. I don't want that to be, but it's timestamps of moments in the sport. So my best photos that I remember are not actually photographically the photo that would end up on a cover of a magazine. They're not, the ones that I like the most are definitely not, like they're not even technically correct. They might even be slightly soft or exposure wrong or framed wrong. So there's a couple of those that are, I guess I'm remembering events in the sport, and then I'm thinking of an image I have that go in. So I'm there to document the sport.
Yeah.
So it's not so much I've got this coolest photo, because you get, as a photographer, and we're shooting a lot of photos with the best riders in the world at some of the best venues in the world. We're going to have lots of nice, pretty photos, all of us. If you're not, like we wouldn't be doing this, or they shouldn't be doing it. So those images are easy to get. There's tons of Rachel Atherton images, which are like super special, just because I sort of started with that, her and G's whole rise, and from the late 2000s all the way through. There's a couple of athletes I could just have a book on, just on that one athlete. Greg, Rachel, Steve, Sam Hill is through everything. And there's Sean Palmer pictures. Like I kind of missed his whole era, so I always wanted to get a good Sean Palmer picture. And the funniest thing, the very first time I saw Sean Palmer in person was at Montanan. I'd seen him before in Tara with the Santa Cruz camp. But Steve saw me, we're going up in the gondola, and he's like, Sven, jump in the gondola with us. And there I was, like, I was already buddies with Steve at this point, but sort of like a shy kid, even though I was like Palmer's age or something. And then I like start taking pictures, but I just see there's no battery in my camera. And I was like, fuck, I ain't admitting this for sure. And I kind of just stopped. And then we're getting in the gondola. And then Steve's like, hey, what's up, Mongo? Usually you'd be taking a million photos. Like, you don't want to take a photo of me and Palm in the gondola. And I'm like, yeah, well, when I get to the top and get a battery from someone in the next gondola, because I don't even have a battery in the camera.